All flights through Hong Kong cancelled as protesters gather at one of Asia's busiest airports for a fourth consecutive day. Hello, welcome to TRT World Live from London. I'm Shuli Ghosh. Also coming up on the programme, Eid celebrations muted in India-administered Kashmir as the security lockdown continues into an eighth day. The Syrian regime advances in Idlib, securing another piece of the last rebel stronghold. And a trash trade-in, how Indonesians are fighting plastic pollution and saving money at the same time. Flights from Hong Kong have been abruptly cancelled on Monday after thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators flooded into one of the world's busiest airport hubs. The latest sit-in was called after a female protester was hit in the face by a projectile fired by police on Sunday night. Well, protests in Hong Kong are into their 10th week, with rights groups accusing the police of an increasingly violent crackdown. Demonstrations are now focused on the airport, where thousands of people have gathered. Authorities say they hope to restart departure flights on Tuesday. Well, earlier, the territory's government released a statement condemning the continuing violence in the city. It said violent protesters vandalised public property and blocked roads. They also besieged police stations. Some violent protesters even hurled petrol bombs during injuring a police officer. The statement went on to say that some public service facilities had to be closed early and emergency services and commercial activities were obstructed. Finally, the government appealed to all members of the public to say no to violence to help the community restore order as soon as possible. Well, Joel Flynn is in Hong Kong following developments. He says the airport sit-in has caused major embarrassment for the authorities, who failed to contain the movement.
Essentially, the morning started off really with a lot of anger, a lot of discussion really about how police had begun to employ new tactics to deal with some of the rallies that had taken place this weekend. Specifically last night, there seems to have been an increase in the aggressiveness with which police were trying to disperse protests. It also included, interestingly, as well, that some police were dressed in plainclothes as protesters themselves and trying perhaps to disrupt some of these rallies and gatherings from the inside. The results of that new tactic seemed to be quite bloody. There was scenes of people being quite aggressively thrown to the floor, and as we know, reports that one volunteer, a field medic, had been hit in the face by some sort of projectile. It subsequently turned out that she may fully lose her vision as a result of that, and that was really a key driving force in the turnout this afternoon here in Hong Kong around the airport, and the huge numbers of people that gathered there trying specifically to disrupt travel in and out of the city, and ultimately succeeding in shutting the airport down, which is something that hasn't happened for some time. This is a hugely important financial hub, not just in terms of the movement of capital, but also in terms of the movement of people. And the closure of this airport today will be a significant loss, a significant embarrassment for the government, in addition to the ongoing unrest that police seem still unable to quell and unable to stop continuing.
Well, political analyst Ross Feingold joins us now from Hong Kong. So, Ross, you're there. Many protesters have been extremely critical of the actions of the police. What do you make of the most recent violence, and do you think we're seeing things changing up a gear?
Well, one of the interesting developments following the violence this weekend, and specifically Sunday night in various parts of Hong Kong, is due to the injuries to the public, and as your report showed, some of the use of tear gas in the MTR, the subway system, metro system stations. It's definitely angered many members of the public. So not necessarily people who participate in the protesters, but people who may be supportive of the protesters, not supportive of the government policies. they are genuinely angry about the police use of force. And of course, from the government perspective, they're justifying this because they say that people are obstructing roads, obstructing commercial activities, as the public statement shown on the screen indicated earlier. There's no consensus here because the government is saying we need to clear the streets, we need to stop people from obstructing public facilities, the transportation system. And the public doesn't want to see members of the public be injured by police use of force, very understandably.
When you look at the Chinese response from Beijing, it's interesting that they're now talking about these protests showing signs of terrorism. You know, how constrained do they have to be in taking actual physical intervention against the protests because of international scrutiny, or do you think that doesn't bother them so much?
Well, there's definitely been, you could call it an uptick or an increase in the intensity of the rhetoric used by Chinese government spokespeople, as well as the official Chinese state media. And that shouldn't surprise us because they've been ramping up their commentary as these events have continued over many weeks. So today they were using words like terrorism, atrocities. So it's very strong wording from the Chinese government. But on the other hand, they still say that, at least for now, they have faith in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region government to handle this, and faith in the Hong Kong police to handle this. And the statements from the Chinese government, as well as the state media, is saying that the public here in Hong Kong should be supportive of the police. But actually, that is the opposite of what's happening, because we do see not just the public, but even other public service, public sector employees. For example, nurses today had a protest. We see that right now the public is not supportive of the police actions.
I mean, this is all clearly having a massive impact on Hong Kong, on its economy. How long can this standoff continue? It's been going on for 10 weeks already.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is business was generally as usual in the downtown, in the financial district today. Even most of yesterday, Sunday, a shopping day, people are obviously, for the most part, not working. So things were business as usual for most of yesterday and today. It was just that last night, in certain districts, we saw this increase in confrontation resulting in violence between the protesters and the police. And then today, the events at the airport, which again began later in the afternoon into the evening, and it resulted in the cancellation of flights. But the fact remains that downtown business was as usual. People who work in offices were able to get to their offices during the day. They were able to get home at the end of the day. So the narrative is not, shouldn't be that Hong Kong has come to a standstill. But of course, it's going to be difficult for the Hong Kong government to make that case to the international community when people read or see that the airport has been closed.
Ross, thank you. Political analyst Ross Feingold in Hong Kong there.